What's going on, YouTube? This is SG1 Sports, and we continue with our tier power rankings. The Big 12 is up next as we just try to break these teams down into different tiers. As I mentioned in the other videos, it kind of gives you a better idea of what I think about these teams. And because when you do rankings, a team that is ranked ahead of another team, you just assume that, well, I must think that that team is way better than the other team. Like if a team is ranked number 10 in the top 25 and a team's ranked number 25, you might think that those teams, there's a lot of separation, but that's not necessarily the case. And so that's why I decided to make these tier power rankings. And for the Big 12, I think there are 3 tiers and a couple of teams that I'm torn on. I'm kind of back and forth on what tier they should be in. But let's just get right to it, and I'll tell you what I mean. So we start with the tier number 1. Oklahoma, Texas, Baylor, and Oklahoma State. These are the teams in the top tier in the Big 12, in my opinion, heading into this season. I think Oklahoma and Baylor are the locks. I think both of those teams should absolutely be here, no doubt about it. Baylor has a lot coming back on really both sides of the ball. This is an experienced team that I think is going to be maybe the favorite in the Big 12. The schedule may not play out that way, but I do think Baylor is going to be a good team this year. And Oklahoma, there are enough pieces, I think, on the offensive side of the ball to where they should still be good there. I know they lost a ton of guys in the transfer portal, but they brought in a lot of players as well. I think Dylan Gabriel will do really well for them at quarterback. And it's really about how much will Brent Venables affect the defense? Is he going to make an instant impact on this defense, and they're going to be looking like one of the top defenses in the country? If that is the case, this team is going to be very dangerous. But if it takes time for him to build that defense up to be a Brent Venables defense, then Oklahoma, I don't think, is going to be ready to be a playoff contender or anything like that. That's going to be the key, though, in my opinion. For Texas, this offense is absolutely loaded. I mean, they've got a ton of talent on that side of the ball. Steve Sarkisian, we know, is a great play caller. It's all about the defense. How good are they going to be on that side of the ball? Very similar to Oklahoma, although they don't have the proven guy like a Brent Venables coaching their defense. So you question them a little bit more on that side of the ball. But on offense, I think they're going to be even better than Oklahoma. Again, this team is absolutely loaded. You got 2 good options at quarterback. Bijan Robinson, one of the top running backs in the country. Xavier Worthy, one of the top wide receivers in the country. And they're deep at both of those positions as well. So Texas, a very dangerous offense. It's really more about the defense. And for Oklahoma State, this is a team that I don't know if they belong in this tier. I know people probably think that I got something against Oklahoma State, but I do not have anything against them. I just look down the roster, and I just have my doubts about this team. I don't think they're very deep at running back or wide receiver. Spencer Sanders has been inconsistent. You look at defense. Yeah, defensive line should be strong for them, but that secondary is a major, major issue when you look at what they have coming back there. Just not a lot of production. So it's going to be all about the coaching in the offseason. Can they get these guys ready? Mike Gundy is a great coach, and because of that, and because where they were last year, I think I'm going to put them in tier number 1, but I'm not quite sold on Oklahoma State being a top 15 team just yet. We'll see how it plays out, but they've got just enough to make it into this top tier. Let's move on to tier number 2. We've got Texas Tech, West Virginia, TCU, and Kansas State. TCU is the one team that should be in their own tier because I think that they're very close to that top tier. I think they're going to surprise some people this year. Might be a little bit better than these other 3 teams, but it's close enough that I think we can put all these teams in the same tier together. All of these teams have potential to be pretty good, and maybe even make a run at the Big 12 championship game. I think they also have a lot of question marks. All of them could potentially drop off and maybe even miss out on a bowl game. You look at Texas Tech and Kansas State, 2 veteran teams, a lot of guys coming back. Adrian Martinez taking over at quarterback for Kansas State is really interesting. They've added some transfers there as well. West Virginia has really done a lot in the transfer portal. When you look at their roster and where it was a few months ago, I thought West Virginia might be in the bottom tier of the Big 12, but they've done a really nice job in the transfer portal. I think they added like 3 cornerbacks just in the last month, and that was an area of need for them. JT Daniels, of course, he's going to get the attention because he's a quarterback, but they've done it in a lot of different areas. If those transfer guys can come in and make an immediate impact, West Virginia could surprise this year. And like I said, TCU, I think, is the team out of this group that would be my dark horse. They've also done really well in the transfer portal, added some guys really in a lot of different areas. And it's going to be really interesting to see what this team can do. A lot of weapons on offense. Sonny Dykes taking over. We know what kind of offense he can produce there. So I think TCU is a dark horse, but all these teams have a lot of boom or bust potential. And one of them, maybe two of them, will probably emerge and be really good. And maybe one or two of them will struggle and be a big disappointment. We'll see which teams wind up where. And then we go to the final tier. And yes, I do have Kansas and Iowa State in the same tier. And I know I'm probably going to get a lot of hate for putting any team in the same tier with Kansas. But I tell you what, Kansas has a lot of production coming back. They're going to be one of the most experienced teams in the country this year. Got a couple of guys at quarterback that played for them last year. I really like the direction Kansas is going in. I don't know if they're going to be a contender anytime soon. But they beat Texas last year. A lot of production coming back. This is a team that could maybe win a game or two in the Big 12 this year. And then you look at Iowa State, and it's not just about Brock Purdy. It's not just about Breece Hall. It's across the board. When you look at what Iowa State lost from a team that was a major disappointment last year, look, I know Matt Campbell is a great coach, and he may prove me wrong. But right now, when I just look at the roster for Iowa State, I'm just not seeing a team that's going to contend in the Big 12. I think that they will struggle to win a couple of games. Maybe they win 2 or 3 games in the Big 12. But I think it's going to be a rough season for Iowa State, kind of a rebuild year for them. And it's not just about Iowa State being bad, though. I think it's about Kansas being better than you might expect. So that's why I put these teams in the same tier. We could maybe, Iowa State's probably going to be better than Kansas. And you could probably put Iowa State in tier 3 and then do a tier 4 for Kansas. But I think it's close enough that we will put these teams in the same tier. And like I said, if you want to put teams in tiers by themselves, I could have made a tier just for TCU, and then I could have split these teams up. But it just made more sense to do 3 tiers, and that's how we're going to do it here for the Big 12. So those are my thoughts on the Big 12. I think it's wide open. I really do. I think anyone could win it. I think when you look at that top tier, Oklahoma, Baylor, Texas, those are the favorites. Oklahoma State, if things come together for them, maybe. TCU, a dark horse. But don't count out a team like West Virginia or Texas Tech or Kansas State potentially making a run, getting to the Big 12 championship. That wouldn't shock me. That wouldn't shock me at all. I think there's a lot of parity in this conference, and I think you're going to see these teams just really beat up on each other, which ultimately might be what keeps the Big 12 out of the college football playoff. But a lot of good teams. I think you're going to see a lot of great games in the Big 12, and that's how I put the teams as far as tiers go. Would love to get your thoughts, your tier rankings on the Big 12 down in the comments below. Thanks for watching this video, and stay tuned for more here on the SG1 Sports College Football Channel.